The drive out to the Bitterroot Dispatch Station took 3 hours longer than the map suggested. A logging truck had lost its load north of Salmon, and the detour was a single-lane gravel track that wound through steep canyons. My little sedan kicking up dust that coated the pines in a ghostly film. I'd been told to report by 4:00 p.m. It was 6:37 p.m. when I finally pulled up to the chain-link fence. The station was a low, concrete block building the color of old teeth, shoved against the base of a mountain slope, so steep it felt like the trees were leaning over to inspect me. A single satellite dish, speckled with lichen, tilted skyward from the roof. The air was cool and carried the scent of damp earth and pine resin. It was quiet, not a peaceful quiet, but a thick, absorbing quiet, like the forest was holding its breath. I got out, my boots crunching on the gravel. The door to the station opened before I could knock. A woman stood there, maybe in her late 50s, her face a roadmap of sun and wind. She wore a faded Forest Service uniform shirt, the name patch reading Vance. She didn't smile. "Hart," she said. "It wasn't a question. That's me. Sorry I am late. Doesn't matter now. You here." She stepped back, holding the door. "Bring your things. All of them." The interior was a single, long room divided by a chest-high counter that ran its length. On the near side, the living quarters. A small kitchenette, a cot, a desk with 2 aging computer monitors. On the far side, the dispatch hub. 4 large radios on a bank of shelves, their faces lit with soft green light. A big topographical map of the district pinned to the wall, dotted with colored pins. A large window, reinforced with a wire mesh between the panes, looked out onto a clearing that quickly gave way to dense forest. The light was fading, casting long, distorted shadows from the trees. Vance locked the door behind me. She slid 3 heavy deadbolts into place, each with a distinct, oiled thunk. "Keys," she said, holding out her hand. I gave her my car keys. She placed them in a small metal lockbox on the kitchen counter and spun the combination dial. "You get these back at shift change, no exceptions." She moved with an economical precision, showing me the propane heater, the pantry stocked with canned goods and pasta, the chemical toilet in a narrow closet. Water comes from the cistern on the roof. Dawn tea drink from the tap in the sink. It is from the spring out back. It is not for drinking. She opened a cabinet to reveal 12 one-gallon jugs of distilled water, arranged in 3 rows of 4. You inventory these at the start and end of every shift. If a seal is broken, you note it. If the count is off by even 1, you note it. "Off how?" I asked. "You just note it," she said, her voice flat. She led me to the dispatch desk. The radios were the heart of it. A primary VHF for fire and emergency traffic, a secondary for administrative chatter, and 2 others with frequency ranges I didn't recognize. A black, ruggedized satellite phone was mounted in a charging cradle. A logbook, bound in green canvas, lay open next to a pen tied to the desk with a length of twine. "Your job is simple," Vance said, her eyes on the darkening window. "You monitor Channel 6 from 6 p.m. to 6 a.m. You log every transmission, time it to the minute, and if it is an emergency, you follow the protocol binder." She tapped a thick 3-ring binder on the shelf. "All other traffic, you acknowledge with your call sign Bitterroot Base and nothing else. No names. Ever." "Why no names?" She turned her gaze to me. It was the look you'd give a malfunctioning tool. "Because this isn't a social club. You're a voice on a radio. That it's all. The people out there," she jerked her chin toward the window, toward the vast, darkening wilderness. They talk to Bitterroot Base. They don't talk to you." I nodded. The money was good. Too good for an overnight dispatch gig in the middle of nowhere. My student loans were a concrete, pressing weight. This was 6 months of salary for 3 months of work. ID asked no questions during the video interview. I asked none now. Vance spent the next hour going over the equipment checks, the weather station inputs, the codes for different types of incidents. It was standard, if slightly antiquated, for a service procedure. Then, as the last of the twilight bled from the sky, she opened a drawer beneath the radio console. From it, she pulled a single sheet of paper, laminated, edges worn soft. She placed it on the desk in front of me. "This," she said, her finger tapping the paper, "is your job. Everything else is background noise." I looked down. It was a numbered list, typed in a small, stark font. 1. All windows must be covered with the provided aluminum shutters by nightfall. The shutters are to be affixed from the inside with the 12 provided screws, no fewer. The south-facing window must be covered first. The east-facing window last. Do not cover the wire mesh reinforced pane in the dispatch area. It remains uncovered at all times. 2. Inventory the water jugs, the battery cache, 24 D cells, and the first aid kit at 7 p.m., 11 p.m., and 5 a.m. Count aloud. Record the counts in the green logbook. If a number repeats itself consecutively, e.g. 12, 12, leave the station immediately via the south door and wait by your vehicle for 15 minutes. Do not re-enter until the full 15 minutes have passed. 3. Between the hours of 10 p.m. and 4 a.m., you may only communicate on Channel 6. If you hear traffic on any other channel, do not acknowledge it. Do not adjust the dial. If a voice on Channel 6 identifies itself as Station 7 or Whisper Ridge, respond only with signal weak. Please repeat. Do not engage further. 4. The motion sensor light on the south side of the building will activate periodically. This is normal if it activates in a sequence of 3 flashes, followed by a 5-second pause, then 2 flashes. Turn off all interior lights and remain silent until the pattern stops. Do not approach the south window during this sequence. 5. A supply runner may approach the south door between 1 a.m. and 1:30 a.m. They will knock 3 times, pause, then knock twice. You will respond by knocking once from your side. Do not open the door. The runner will leave supplies. Wait 5 full minutes after the sounds of departure cease before retrieving the package. 6. Do not, under any circumstances, open the north door after dark. It is to remain deadbolted from 6 p.m. to 6 a.m. 7. If you hear footsteps circling the building, count them. If the count exceeds 100 before the footsteps cease, go to the dispatch desk and key the microphone on Channel 6 for 10 seconds of dead air. Do not speak. 8. If the satellite phone rings, answer it immediately. You will hear static. Say Bitterroot Base, clear. Wait 3 seconds. If the static continues, hang up. If the static is replaced by a voice that sounds familiar, say wrong number and hang up. Do not listen further. 9. At 3 a.m., you will conduct a perimeter check via the exterior camera monitor, switch located under the desk. The monitor will cycle through 4 views: south, east, west, north. Each view should be clear for 10 seconds. If any view shows a figure standing within 10 yards of the building, look away from the monitor for 1 minute. Do not look at the reinforced window during this time. After 1 minute, check the view again. If the figure is gone, proceed. If it is closer, repeat the 1 minute wait. 10. You may experience feelings of intense drowsiness between 3:30 a.m. and 4 a.m. This is normal. Do not sleep. Stand at the reinforced window and state the current weather conditions aloud, followed by your full name. Then drink 8 ounces of water from a sealed jug. 11. If any rule seems contradictory or unclear, refer to Amendment Sheet A in the lockbox. The combination is 10, 28, 31. Do not open the lockbox for any other reason. 12. Your shift ends at 6 a.m. Do not unlock any door or remove the window shutters before 6:15 a.m., even if the sun is fully risen. At 6:15 a.m., remove the shutters in reverse order, east first, south last. Wait for your relief at the south door. Verify their identity through the peephole. They will show you the day's security phrase, written on the back of their left hand. It will match the phrase written on the inside of the lockbox lid. Only then may you unlock the door. I read it twice. My skin felt cool. What is this? Your job, Vance repeated. She was putting on her jacket. Follow the list. The order is important. Dante, improvise. Dante, get clever. Just follow the list. And if I Dante... She finally looked at me, really looked at me. There was no threat in her eyes, only a profound, weary certainty. Then you want to be here at 6 a.m., and neither will anyone who comes after you. She zipped her jacket. I'll be at the ranger station in Darby. You can reach me on the admin channel until 10 p.m. After that, you're on protocol. She walked to the south door, checked her watch, and began disengaging the deadbolts. First night's the easiest. They were just watching tonight. She opened the door. The cool evening air rushed in, smelling of loam and coming frost. Good luck, Hart. The door closed behind her. I heard the crunch of her boots on the gravel, the start of an engine, the sound fading down the access road. Then the thick quiet returned. I was alone. My watch read 7:02 p.m. The first inventory was due. I pushed the strangeness of the list aside. A job was a job. Procedures were procedures. I could follow instructions. I started with the water jugs. 1, 2, 3. I counted aloud, my voice too loud in the silent room. Each jug was full, the plastic seals intact. 10, 11, 12. I wrote 12 full seals intact in the green logbook. The battery cache was a plastic bin with dividers. 1, 2, 3. I slotted each heavy D-cell from one compartment to another as I counted. 22, 23, 24. I logged it. The first aid kit was standard issue. Bandages, gauze, antiseptic. I unzipped it and verified the contents against the inventory list clipped inside the lid. Everything was present. I noted it. No numbers had repeated. I felt a foolish surge of relief. Next, the windows. The aluminum shutters were leaning against the wall beside each pane, 12 screws lined up on the sill for each. I found the south-facing window in the kitchen area. The shutters were heavy, cold to the touch. I lifted one, aligning it with the bolt holes drilled into the concrete frame. My fingers were clumsy with the first screw, but I got it started. By the third, I had a rhythm. The screwdriver-esque whine was the only sound. When the 12th screw was tight, the window was sealed behind a blank, reflective metal sheet. The room felt smaller. I did the same for the 2 smaller windows in the sleeping area. Lastly, the east window, a narrow slit in the bathroom. By the time I finished, my watch read 7:48 p.m. The only uncovered glass was the large reinforced pane overlooking the dispatch desk and the forest. Darkness was complete now. My own reflection, pale and thin, stared back at me from the blackness outside. I made a dinner of canned chili, eating at the desk while I familiarized myself with the radio logs. At 8:14 p.m., a call came in on Channel 6. A logging supervisor reporting a crew clear of a western sector. "Copy, Bitterroot Base," I said, my voice steady. I logged the time and the message. At 8:47 p.m., a ranger checking in from a remote trailhead. Routine. Normal. The normalcy was a trap. It made the list feel like a bizarre joke. Maybe it was a hazing ritual, a test for the new guy. I clung to that thought. At 9:55 p.m., 5 minutes before the communication lockdown, the admin channel crackled. It was Vance. Bitterroot. Status. "All secure," I replied, using the phrase she de-drilled into me. "Inventory completed? At 7:00 p.m., all counts correct." A pause. "Remember the sequence. South door first at 6:15 a.m. Not before. Understood." The radio went silent. At 10:00 p.m. exactly, I switched off the admin receiver. The station was now officially on Channel 6 only. The silence deepened. It was the empty silence. It was a listening silence. I found myself holding my breath to hear better. The gentle hum of the computers, the faint hiss of the radios, the occasional creak of the building settling. These sounds only underlined the profound stillness outside. At 10:23 p.m., the motion sensor light on the south side blazed on. I jumped, my heart hammering. I hadn't heard anything. Through the reinforced window, I could see nothing but the sudden white glare illuminating 50 yards of empty gravel and the first line of trees. It stayed on for 30 seconds, then clicked off. Normal, I told myself. Rule 4 said it was normal. 5 minutes later, it happened again. On. 30 seconds. Off. Then, at 10:41 p.m., it flashed 3 times in quick succession. I froze, my hand on the logbook. The light went dark for a count of 5. Then it flashed twice. 3 flashes. 5-second pause. 2 flashes. Rule 4. I stood up so fast, my chair rolled back and hit the counter. I scrambled for the light switch by the kitchenette, flicking it off. The overhead fluorescence died with a ping. I moved to the desk lamp, killing it. The room was plunged into darkness, broken only by the soft green glow of the radio dials and the red power LED on the satellite phone charger. I stood in the center of the room, my breathing loud in my ears. I didn't approach the south window. I didn't make a sound. Outside, the motion light continued its pattern. 3 flashes, pause, 2 flashes. It repeated and repeated. Not random, a deliberate rhythmic signal. I lost track of how many cycles. 10, 20. Time stretched and warped in the dark. My legs began to ache from standing rigidly still. A primal part of my brain screamed that I should look. I should know what was out there activating the sensor. The rule was a leash, holding me fast. Finally, after what my watch later told me was 17 minutes, the pattern stopped. The light did not come on again. The clearing was swallowed by pure black. I waited another 5 minutes in the dark before I turned the desk lamp back on. The small pool of light felt desperately insufficient. My hands were trembling. I logged the event, 2241, motion light sequence, 352. Protocol followed. The mundane act of writing steadied me. The next inventory was at 11 p.m. I counted the water jugs again, my voice a hoarse whisper. 1, 2, 3. I moved the batteries. 14, 15, 16. I finished. No repeats. I drank some water from a newly opened jug. My mouth was dry. Midnight passed without incident. The radio remained silent. The quiet was a physical pressure. To fight, the drowsiness beginning to pull at my eyelids, I studied the topo map. I traced the fire roads, the creek beds, the contour lines that bunched together near the station, indicating the steep rise of the mountain at our back. Our clearing was a tiny, vulnerable bubble in a vast, vertical wilderness. At 12:55 a.m., I heard the first footstep. It was a crisp, unmistakable crunch of gravel. Due south, about 20 yards out. My head snapped up. I stared at the reinforced window, seeing only my reflection and the black void beyond. Another crunch. To the right, moving west. A slow, deliberate circuit of the building. Rule 7, count them. I stood up, pressing myself against the counter, ear tilted toward the window. Crunch, 3, crunch, 4. The steps were evenly spaced, about a second apart, a steady walking pace. They moved past the west side of the building, the sound muffled by distance and the covered windows. I strained to hear. Crunch, 5, 6. They reached the north side. I could barely hear them now, just a faint, rhythmic pressing of weight on stone. 7, 8, 9. The north door. Rule 6 forbade opening it. As the footsteps passed it, I had a sudden, irrational image of a hand testing the handle. I held my breath. The footsteps came around the east side, clearer again. 10, 11, 12. They passed the small shuttered bathroom window. 13, 14. They completed the circuit and started a second lap. 15, 16. This was not an animal. The cadence was too perfect, too human. But who would be out here, walking circles in the dark at 1:00 a.m.? The supply runner? Rule 5 said they'd come between 1 and 1:30 a.m. But they were supposed to knock, not circle. I kept counting. The footsteps completed a second lap. 30, a third lap, 45. They were neither speeding up nor slowing down. A metronome in the dark. At 63 steps, the knock came. 3 sharp, firm raps on the south door. The footsteps had just passed the west side. They couldn't have physically reached the south door that fast. The knocks were exactly as described. 3, a pause, then 2 more. Rap, rap, rap. Rap, rap. My mouth was dust. This was the procedure. I had to respond. I walked to the south door, my own footsteps soundless on the linoleum. I lifted my fist and knocked once, solidly, on the metal doorframe. From outside, nothing. No acknowledgement. No sound of departure. I stood there, hand still raised. 5 minutes, the rule said. Wait 5 full minutes after the sounds of departure cease. But there had been no sound of departure. The footsteps had just stopped after the knock. I checked my watch. 1:07 a.m., I waited, ear almost touching the cold metal of the door. A minute passed, 2. At 1:09 a.m., I heard a soft, sliding scrape outside, like a box being pushed across gravel. Then silence. I waited the full 5 minutes until 1:14 a.m. My muscles were locked with tension. Slowly, I disengaged the 3 deadbolts. The clunks were deafening. I turned the handle and opened the door, a bare 6 inches, ready to slam it shut. A brown cardboard box, about the size of a case of soda, sat on the gravel. Beyond it, the clearing was empty. The motion light stayed off. I snatched the box inside, closed the door, and threw the bolts home. My heart was pounding a frantic rhythm against my ribs. The box was unmarked. Inside, I found 4 new sealed water jugs, a box of 9-volt batteries, a fresh logbook, and a smaller white cardboard box. Inside the white box, nestled in tissue paper, were 6 cinnamon rolls, still slightly warm. The scent of sugar and spice filled the air, so normal it was disorienting. I logged the delivery. I replaced 3 of the water jugs from the cabinet with the new ones, noting the swap. I put the pastries on the counter. I didn't touch them. The warmth was wrong. How could they be warm out here in the cold? The incident broke the night into a before and after. The rules were no longer an abstract test. Something was here. and the rules were a barrier against it. The next hours were a grind of vigilance. I fought off the intense drowsiness that hit at 3:30 a.m. exactly as predicted. I stood at the reinforced window and mumbled, "Clear skies, no wind, temperature 34 degrees, Liam Hart." I drank exactly 8 ounces of water. The fatigue retreated, replaced by a jittery, caffeineless alertness. The 3 a.m. perimeter check had been clear. All 4 camera views showed nothing but still, monochrome images of gravel and tree line. I clung to that. At 5 a.m., I conducted the final inventory. My voice was a rasp. Water jugs. 1, 2, 3. I got to the 12th jug. 12. I moved to the batteries. 1, 2, 3, 23, 24. I finished and recorded the counts. No repeats. The first faint hint of gray was lightening the blackness beyond the reinforced window when the satellite phone rang. The sound was a shrill, electronic scream in the silent room. I stared at it. Rule 8. On the 4th ring, I snatched it up. Bitterroot bass, clear, static, a harsh, white noise, hiss. I waited 3 seconds, my grip tight on the plastic casing. Bitterroot bass, clear, I repeated. The static crackled, shifted. For a moment, I thought I heard a voice deep within it, a muffled syllable. Then the hiss smoothed, coalesced, and a voice came through. It was my father, Etsy's voice. He had died 4 years ago of a heart attack. "Liam, kiddo, you there? I am lost. I need you to come get me." The sound was perfect. The slight rasp, the affectionate kiddo he always used. A wave of visceral, disorienting grief and longing slammed into me. My throat closed. The rule. Say wrong number and hang up. "Dad," I whispered. "It's so dark out here, Liam. Just tell me where you are." "I can see lights." "Are those your lights?" I could see him in his old plaid jacket, confused and scared in the woods. The image was so powerful, it overrode logic. My finger was to the hang-up button. It was pressing the phone harder to my ear. "Just come to the door, son. The north door. It's closer to me. North door. Rule 6. The words cut through the fog. Under any circumstances, it wasn't my father. It couldn't be. But the voice "wrong number," I choked out. The words felt like acid on my tongue. I hung up. I stood there, trembling, the phone clutched in my hand. It didn't ring again. I placed it back in the cradle. For the first time, I understood the cost of the rules. They demanded the sacrifice of hope, of that desperate human impulse to believe the impossible. The sky shifted from gray to pale blue. At 6:15 a.m. precisely, I removed the east window shutter first, then the others, letting the cold, clean morning light flood in. At 6:25 a.m., a dusty Forest Service pickup truck pulled up to the gate. A man in his 30s got out, stretching. I watched through the peephole as he approached. He held up his left hand to the glass. Written on his skin in blue ballpoint ink were the words, "Rusty Nail." I opened the lockbox. Inside, next to my car keys, on the underside of the lid, the same phrase was written in the same handwriting, "Rusty Nail." I unlocked the south door. The man, whose name was Carl, brushed past me with a grunt of greeting. He smelled of coffee and cigarettes. "Quiet night?" he asked, already shrugging off his coat. "Quiet," I echoed, my voice rough. I handed him the keys from the lockbox. He tossed them on the desk, barely glancing at the green logbook I had left open. "Vance said you did all right," he said, powering up the second computer monitor. "Get some sleep. You're back on at 6 p.m. I gathered my things and walked out into the morning. The sun was just cresting the eastern ridge, painting the clearing in gold. It looked ordinary, beautiful even. My car was where I left it, coated in a fine layer of dew. As I drove down the access road, the weight of the night settled onto my shoulders, a permanent silent companion. The next week was a cycle of days spent in a foggy, restless sleep at the rented cabin in Derby, and nights spent in the concrete block under the rules. I learned the rhythms. The motion light sequence happened twice more, always between 10:30 p.m. and 11:30 p.m. The footsteps circled on 4 subsequent nights, but never exceeded 70 counts. The supply runner came every 3rd night, always with warm pastries. I never touched them. I left them in the box on the counter for Carl, who never mentioned them. I became proficient. The inventories were clockwork. The perimeter checks were swift. I answered the satellite phone twice more. Both times it was static, and I followed the protocol without hesitation. The dread became a familiar tool, like the screwdriver or the radio mic. Something to be held correctly and used. On my 8th night, the anomaly was different. It was 2:18 a.m. The radio had been silent for hours. I was reviewing the protocol binder when I heard a new sound from the roof, a scraping, like something heavy being dragged slowly across the corrugated metal. It started above the kitchen, moved over the main room, and stopped directly above the dispatch desk. I looked up at the ceiling. Nothing, of course. Then a tap, a single metallic ping right above my head. Rule 11 stated that if a rule seemed contradictory or unclear, I should refer to Amendment Sheet A. No rule covered roof sounds. Was this unclear? It felt very clear. Something was on the roof. I fought the impulse to go outside and look. Rule 6. The north door was forbidden. The south door, I could, technically, open it. But no rule sanctioned a roof investigation. The absence of a rule felt like a trap. The scraping started again, moving back toward the north side of the building. Then it stopped. I waited, my neck aching from staring upwards. At 2:37 a.m., the motion sensor light on the south side flashed the 3 to 5-2 sequence. I killed the interior lights and stood in the dark. As I did, I heard a soft, wet thud from outside the north wall, followed by the sound of something large shuffling away through the underbrush. When the light pattern ceased, I turned the desk lamp back on. My hands were steady. I logged it. EO2, 10:18. Auditory disturbance, roof. EO2, 37, light sequence. Concurrent external noise, north side, no visual. In the morning, during my 5 a.m. inventory, I found the first discrepancy. I counted the water jugs. 1, 2, 3. When I got to the 12th jug, I stopped. There were 13. An extra jug, identical to the others, sealed, was tucked at the back of the cabinet. A cold finger traced my spine. I had inventoried 12 at 11 p.m. The supply runner had not come tonight. I recounted, pulling each jug out. 13. My mind raced. The rule said to note it. But another part of Rule 2 echoed. If a number repeats itself consecutively, leave the station. This wasn't a repeat. It was an addition. I noted it in the log. Euro 5 Gerward, water inventory, 13 jugs. Previous count 12. No broken seals. When Carl arrived, I pointed it out to him. He glanced at the log, then at the cabinet. His face, usually slack with fatigue, tightened. Did you drink from an unsealed one? No. Rule 2. I only drink from newly opened jugs. He nodded once. Note it, that's all. He didn't explain. He opened the lockbox, took out a red pen, and added a note to the inside of the lid beneath the security phrase. He didn't let me see what he wrote. That night, when I arrived, Vance was waiting for me inside. She was sitting at the dispatch desk, her face lit by the green glow. "Hart," she said. "You noted an inventory irregularity. Yes, an extra water jug. Did you follow the procedure? I noted it. There was no rule for an addition, only for a repeat. She studied me for a long moment. Sit. I sat on the stool opposite her. She pulled a single sheet of paper from the drawer. Not the original laminated list, but a plain sheet with typed additions. Amendment. Sheet A. You encountered an undefined event, she said, her voice low and even. The rules are a perimeter. Sometimes they test the fence. When they do, we reinforce it. She slid the paper across to me. The amendments were numbered sequentially from the original 12. 13. If an inventory reveals an increase in quantity, remove the new item immediately. Place it outside the north door within 5 minutes of discovery. Do not open the north door. Use the exterior access hatch located in the floor of the north wall storage closet. The hatch is to be unlocked at 5:05 a.m. only for this purpose. Place the item on the ground, close and relock the hatch. Return to the main room and do not approach the north wall for 30 minutes. 14. Roof sounds are to be ignored unless accompanied by vocal mimicry, e.g., crying, calling for help. If vocal mimicry occurs, turn on all exterior floods via the switch marked X and begin playing the provided cassette tape of crowd noise on the portable player. Continue until 1 hour after the sounds cease. 15. If the motion sensor light sequence occurs more than twice in one night, you are required to perform a verbal confirmation every 15 minutes until 4 a.m. State your name, the date, and your location into the recorder. See Drawer 3. Play back the previous recording before making the next. Any discrepancy in your own voice, re-record immediately. 16. The supply runner may, on occasion, leave a written note atop the package. If the note is written in blue ink, read it and follow the instructions precisely. If it is written in red ink, do not read it. Burn it in the metal waste bin using the provided lighter. Do not look at the ashes. 17. Should you discover a door, south or interior, ajar that you are certain you closed, do not close it. Secure the room it opens into using the yellow police tape from the first aid kit. Consider that room inaccessible for the remainder of the shift. 18. You are authorized to open the lockbox in the event of a clear and immediate contradiction between the original rules and the amendments. The combination remains the same. I read through them twice. They were so specific, so bizarrely procedural. They spoke of prior incidents, of breaches learned from. Vocal mimicry? I asked. Vance S.'s expression didn't change. You heard the satellite phone. A statement, not a question. I nodded. That was a simple test, a lure. Roof mimicry is more aggressive. It tries to provoke a rescue response. She stood up. The amendments are now part of your protocol. The extra water jug should have been disposed of at 5:05 a.m. Since it was not, Carl handled it. But the item was present on your shift, so the amendment is now your responsibility to execute, should it happen again. She left soon after, leaving me with the amended list. I felt like I had graduated to a new, more dangerous level of a game whose stakes were never defined. The next few nights were quiet. I integrated the new rules into my routines. I found the exterior access hatch in the north closet, a small, heavy door bolted from the inside, leading to a crawl space that exited under the eaves. I found the cassette tape, Crowd Noise, State Fair, 1987, and the portable player. I found the recorder in Drawer 3. The quiet felt like the calm before a storm. The storm arrived on my 17th night. The weather had turned. A cold rain lashed the reinforced window, blurring the world into streaks of black and green. Wind howled in the trees, masking other sounds. This was a problem. Many rules relied on hearing. At 9:45 p.m., the radio on Channel 2 crackled to life. Channel 2 was supposed to be silent. Rule 3 was explicit: do not acknowledge it. A voice, strained and broken by static, came through. Any station, this is Firewatch Tower Gamma. We have a situation. Multiple signals on the perimeter. Request immediate status check. Firewatch Tower Gamma was a real location, marked on my map about 20 miles northeast. The voice sounded real, panicked. I kept my hand away from the dial. I did not adjust it. I did not acknowledge. The transmission repeated twice more, each time more desperate. Then, at 10:01 p.m., it stopped. I let out a breath I didn't know I was holding. I logged the illegal transmission, my pen shaking slightly. The wind screamed. At 11 p.m., during my inventory, the power flickered. The radios died for a second, then hummed back to life as the backup generator kicked in. The lights dimmed to a brownish glow. The storm was straining the systems. I finished counting the batteries. 22, 23, 24. I went to the first aid kit. As I zipped it shut, I heard it. Over the wind, a child-see voice, crying. It came from above, from the roof. My blood turned to ice. Rule 14. Roof sounds are to be ignored unless accompanied by vocal mimicry. This was mimicry. The crying was heart-wrenching. A little girl, lost, terrified, cold. Hello? Please. It's so wet up here. Help me down. I stood frozen. Every human instinct screamed at me to do something, but the rules, they were a cage of cold iron. I moved. I went to the switch panel, found the one marked X, with a piece of fraying electrical tape. I threw it. Outside, 4 powerful floodlights mounted on the corners of the building blazed to life, cutting through the rain, turning the clearing into a stark tableau of silver streaks and sharp shadows. The crying stopped for a moment, then it resumed, closer to the edge of the roof above the reinforced window. The light. I see you. Please help. I fumbled with the portable cassette player. I shoved in the tape and pressed play. The sound of a crowd erupted from the small speaker. Distant cheers, the tinny call of a carnival barker, laughter, the discordant melody of a calliope. It was surreal, blasphemous against the child as weeping and the storm as fury. I turned the volume to maximum. The crowd noise filled the room, clashing horribly with the reality outside. Why won't you help me? The voice wailed, now tinged with something else, not sadness, but a sharp, petulant anger. Just open the window. I'm right here. I stood my ground, the crowd noise washing over me. I watched the reinforced window. Nothing but sheeting rain. The voice shifted. It was no longer a child. It was Vance. Hart, this is Supervisor Vance. The roof is compromised. I need you to assist with a visual inspection from the south side. Now. That's an order. The authority in the tone was perfect. It was the voice that had commanded me for weeks. My muscles twitched, trained to respond. But Vance was in Derby, and she would never give an order that violated the rules. She had written them. I stayed put. The cassette tape played on, a loop of mundane joy. The voice tried other tactics. My father again. A woman sobbing about an injured husband. Finally, it devolved into a guttural, snarling stream of sounds that were almost words, but twisted, wrong. The rage in it was palpable, vibrating through the roof metal. This went on for 47 minutes. I know because I watched the clock, the cassette player growing warm in my hands. Then, abruptly, it stopped. The rule said to continue for 1 hour after the sounds cease. I let the crowd noise play for another 60 minutes, the happy sounds becoming a torment of their own. At 1:24 a.m., I switched off the player and the exterior floods. The silence that followed was profound, broken only by the lessening rain. My ears rang. I was drenched in a cold sweat. I logged the event in meticulous detail. Then, because the motion light had sequenced 3 times during the ordeal, I had counted, unable to darken the room because of the mimicry protocol. I had to initiate Rule 15. Every 15 minutes until 4:00 a.m., I spoke into the recorder. Liam Hart, October 23rd, Bitterroot Dispatch Station. I played back each recording. My voice sounded hollow, strained, but it was mine. The storm passed. The rest of the night was a numb haze of compliance. When Carl arrived, he took one look at my face and at the detailed log and simply nodded. "First major mimicry event," he said, almost to himself. "You used the tape?" "Yes." "Good. It hates that tape." He didn't elaborate. "The siege changed me. I slept less. I started double-checking the deadbolts. I measured the water in my drinking glass. The world inside the station became the only real world. The sunny days in Derby felt like a dream." A week later, the temptation came in a different form. It was 2 a.m., a calm, clear night. I saw the headlights winding up the access road. A vehicle pulled into the clearing, a familiar Forest Service SUV. The driver's door opened, and Vance got out. She walked toward the south door, her movements crisp in the glare of the vehicle and headlights. This was wrong. Vance never visited during the shift. Never. She knocked. 3 firm raps. I didn't respond. Rule 5 was for the supply runner, not for Vance. "Hart, open up. We have an emergency protocol to enact. There's a wildfire spotting west of here, and we were commandeering the station as a forward post. Open the door." Her voice was exact. I remained silent. I watched her through the peephole. She looked impatient, real. "Liam, for God's sake, this is not a drill. Open the door now, or I'll have your job." Job, the word hooked into my fear, my need for the money. It was the perfect lever. I almost turned the first deadbolt. My hand was on it. But the rules about doors were absolute. No one was to be admitted after dark. The supply runner interaction was a ritual of closed doors. And Vance herself had written Rule 12. Verify identity with the security phrase at shift change. She wasn't showing a phrase. She was demanding. "What's the security phrase, Supervisor?" I called through the door, my voice tight. A pause. "There is no time for that, Hart. This is an emergency override." "What's the phrase?" Another pause. Then her voice changed. It lost its impatience, becoming smooth, almost amused. Clever. "But the fire is real. You can see the glow." She pointed west. Against my better judgment, I went to the reinforced window and looked. There, on the far western horizon, a faint, flickering orange glow pulsed against the stars. My breath caught. A real fire. "You need to activate the emergency broadcast beacon." The voice that was not Vance called. "It's in the north closet. You have to go in there and throw the big red switch. Now, Hart, the north closet, where the exterior hatch was, the forbidden door." The glow in the west seemed to brighten as I watched. A real emergency. A real reason to break protocol. I was at a crossroads. The rules were for the station's security. But a wildfire threatened the entire district. Was it that more important? I moved to the dispatch desk. I opened the lockbox. Rule 18 authorized it for a clear contradiction. This was a contradiction. The rule to secure the station versus the duty to respond to a clear, external emergency. Inside the lockbox, next to my keys, was another laminated sheet. Emergency protocols. I pulled it out. 1. In the event of a confirmed external catastrophe, visible wildfire, seismic event, severe storm damage, all previous rules are suspended except for Rule 6, North Door, and Rule 8, Satellite Phone. You will seal the reinforced window shutter, located under the cot, using the provided steel brackets. This is your primary task. 2. Once the window is sealed, move to the north closet. Open the interior door. Inside, on the back wall, you will find the emergency beacon switch. It is green, not red. Throw the switch, then exit the closet and lock the door. Do not look back into the closet after throwing the switch. 3. Return to the main room and monitor Channel 6 for evacuation instructions. Do not, under any circumstances, acknowledge any voice on the radio that claims to be evacuation coordination unless they first provide the cipher. The owl flies at midnight. Your response is, but the mouse is already home. 4. You may now open the south door to authorized personnel. Authorization is verified by a vertical, not horizontal beam from their flashlight. If the beam is horizontal, close and relock the door immediately. 5. If at any point you lose radio contact or the beacon switch fails to illuminate, assume station integrity is compromised. Your final protocol is to remain silent and still until daylight, regardless of instructions to the contrary. I read it, my mind racing. The beacon switch was green. Notvance had said red. That was the trap. The glow in the west was real, but the voice at the door was lying about the switch. I made my decision. I followed the emergency protocol. I retrieved the heavy steel shutter from under the cot. It was massive, cumbersome. I braced it against the reinforced window and began affixing the steel brackets. The work was hard, physical. I could hear Notvance outside, pounding on the door now, her voice shifting between cajoling and threatening. As I tightened the final bracket, sealing myself into a metal box, the pounding stopped. I moved to the north closet. The interior door was always unlocked. I opened it. The small space was filled with old manuals and the hatch to the exterior. On the back wall was a metal electrical panel. In its center was a large covered switch. The cover was clear plastic. Under it was a switch, illuminated by a small bulb. It was green. I reached out, flipped the cover up, and threw the switch. A low hum filled the station. A red light on the dispatch console, marked beacon, began to pulse steadily. I turned and left the closet, closing the door behind me. I did not look back. As I locked it, I heard a sound from within, a faint, furious scratching, like long nails on the other side of the door. It faded after a few seconds. Back at the desk, I watched Channel 6. At 3:17 a.m., a voice I didn't recognize came through. Bitterroot Base, this is Incident Command West. Do you read? Over. I keyed the mic. Bitterroot Base reads, over. Bitterroot, confirm beacon activation. Over. Beacon is active. Over. Confirm with cipher. The owl flies at midnight. Over. My relief was a physical wave, but the mouse is already home. Over. Confirmed, Bitterroot. You are to shelter in place. Fire is holding at Ridgeline 4. No evacuation required. Maintain beacon. We'll stand down at dawn. Over. Copy. Sheltering in place. The rest of the night was tense, but guided by the emergency protocols. No one came to the door. The scratching did not return. At 5:30 a.m., Incident Command radioed that the beacon could be deactivated. I followed the reverse procedure, unlocking the north closet. The scratching was gone, throwing the switch, and then, after 6:15 a.m., removing the steel shutter from the window. The morning sun revealed a thin haze of smoke in the western sky, but no active glow. The clearing was empty. No SUV, only my car, and later, Carl's truck. When I told him what happened, he was quiet for a long time. "It used a real fire," he said finally. "That's ambitious. It doesn't usually go to that much trouble. It must think you were worth the effort." He said it like it was a professional assessment. The final test came on what should have been my last night. My 3-month contract was up. I had my final loan payment scheduled for the morning. One last shift. It was a perfectly calm, clear night. The routines were so ingrained, they were autonomic. Inventory at 7 p.m., 11 p.m., flawless. No extra items, no footsteps. The motion light flashed its normal sequence once at 10:50 p.m. I darkened the room, waited, continued. At 2:00 a.m., the radio on Channel 6 crackled. "Bitterroot Base, this is Station 7. Come in. Station 7, the forbidden identifier." Rule 3. I keyed the mic. "Signal weak. Please repeat." The sanctioned response. "Bitterroot, we have a man down. Coordinates Grizitayer location. Requesting immediate medical extraction. He says he knows you. His name is Carl." A chill that had nothing to do with the room temperature settled over me. "Signal weak. Please repeat," I said again, my voice flat. Damn it, Base. He's bleeding out. He's saying, "Tell Liam the phrase is rusty nail." Do you copy? The phrase is rusty nail. The security phrase. From yesterday. Known only to Carl and me, and written in the lockbox. It was a perfect lure. It used a real person, a real phrase, a plausible emergency. It preyed on loyalty, on the human connection formed in this isolated place. My hand hovered over the mic. The rule was clear. Do not engage further. But Carl. If it was really him, I closed my eyes. I thought of the warm pastries, the red ink note I'd never seen, the extra water jug. I thought of the thing on the roof using a child as cry, of not Vance and the wrong colored switch. This was the same. It had to be. "Signal weak. Please repeat," I said for the third and final time. The radio went silent. At 3 a.m., the perimeter check. The monitor cycled. South, clear. East, clear. West, clear. North. A figure stood 7 yards from the north wall, just at the tree line. It was Carl, or something wearing Carl's face. He was staring directly into the camera, his expression blank. One hand was held up, pressed against an invisible barrier. In the green glow of the night vision camera, he looked pallid, wrong. Rule 9. Look away for 1 minute. I averted my eyes, staring at the grain of the wooden desk, counting seconds in my head. 60. I looked back. The monitor had cycled back to the south view. I waited for the cycle to come back to north. North view. The figure was closer. 4 yards away. It had crossed half the distance. Its mouth was open now, as if shouting soundlessly. I looked away again. Another minute. My heart was a drum. I looked. North view. The figure was at the wall, its face pressed against the lens, distorting the features into a grotesque smear. It was so close I could see the individual threads of his uniform jacket. If it is closer, repeat the 1 minute wait. I looked away. I repeated the wait 3 times. On the 4th check, the north view was clear. Just the rough concrete of the foundation wall. The dark mulch of the forest floor beyond. The rest of the night passed in a hyper-alert fugue. I stated my name at the window at 3:30 a.m. I drank the water. I counted the minutes until 6 a.m. At 6:10 a.m., as the first true light touched the clearing, I saw Carl's truck pull up. He got out, moving slowly. He looked tired, but normal. He walked to the south door and held his left hand to the peephole. The phrase in blue ink was "rusty nail." I unlocked the door. He came in, nodded at me, and went straight to the coffee pot. "Rough night?" he asked, his back to me. "Station 7 called, used your name, used the phrase." He froze, then slowly turned. "What did you do?" I followed the rule. "Signal weak, please repeat." 3 times. He let out a long, slow breath. "Good." It tried me with Vance S. voice my first month. I didn't follow the rule. He rubbed a spot on his neck, an old white scar just below his hairline. It doesn't like to be reminded of the rules. It gets aggressive. "You saw it on the north camera." "Yes. That was because you stuck to the protocol." It was a final push, a tantrum. He poured coffee into a chipped mug. "Your last shift. You made it. I made it." He opened the lockbox, handed me my car keys. The finality of the gesture was immense. "Vance will have your paperwork at the ranger station. Check out before noon." I gathered my few personal items from the cot. As I was leaving, I stopped. The north door. What's out there? Carl didn't look at me. He was staring at the now sunlit, reinforced window. "A path," he said softly. "For things that follow the rules on their side. Our rules keep it a path. If we open the door, it becomes a road. And then it comes inside." I left. The morning air was sweet. I drove to Darby, collected my final paycheck, and release papers from a silent Vance. She offered no congratulations, only a firm handshake. My bank account swelled. My debt was gone. But I didn't leave Idaho. I rented a cabin a little further out, away from people. I sleep during the day. I find myself inventorying my groceries, counting steps from my car to the door, locking and relocking my windows at night. I bought a shortwave radio. I sometimes tune it, late, listening to the static. Last week, I saw a job posting for a communications officer at a remote weather station in Alaska. The pay is exceptional. The posting lists a mandatory, non-negotiable 6-month solo rotation. I printed the application. On a clean white sheet of paper, I've begun drafting a numbered list, not of what I'll need to bring, but of what I'll need to do. I start with what I know. 1. All windows must be covered by nightfall. The pen feels comfortable in my hand. The work is familiar. It is just a matter of being precise, of following the rules. I keep writing.